Okay, no reason to beat around the bush. Let's talk about Noct and his shadow magic. This is more about shadow magic than Noct's character. I will do a character about him later. Also, apologies if this video is a little bit late. I kept getting pushed back from helping my family with stuff and school and shit like that. So, what is shadow magic? Well, let's get into that. Shadow magic is apparently an offshoot of light and darkness magic, as it appears to be something akin to the four great attributes of mana. You see, while it's common for the four great attributes of mana, that being earth, water, fire, and wind, do have offshoots that are connected to them, such as lightning, smoke, metal, and ice. It's very uncommon for attributes that are not associated with them to have any real connection. It's not impossible, but it's not as commonly seen. The most commonly seen interaction between these irregular magic attributes, as I will now call them, is with light, as light interacts directly with both time and darkness, which are two separate irregular magic attributes. In Bertolli's own words, the only thing that can counter time is light, as light is the only thing fast enough to break the barrier and potentially keep up with time magic, and light directly interacts with darkness, as darkness consumes light inherently. With that being said, shadow magic directly carries a link between light and darkness. You see, it directly interacts with darkness, as the absence of light is dark, but at the same time is directly impacted by light in the environment, thus creating a bridge between light and darkness. That's enough about irregular magic though, let's talk about shadow magic. Shadow magic is essentially a mix between spatial magic and active manipulation of a certain type of element, that being shadows. Shadow magic allows, alongside creating physical shadows such as the Canis Hounds, allows the user to interact with and generate or manipulate existing shadows to create unique effects. Not only can Noct immobilize shadows, thus freezing the person in place as their shadow is frozen, thus they are frozen, he can also transport himself through shadows, through shadow walk or shadow teleportation, compared directly to spatial magic. Noct's abilities more or less boil down to the ability to both immobilize and manipulate existing shadows, and since shadows are directly tied to the individual, such as the shadow of someone being left in the sun as they walk, he can directly interact with and affect the shadow of the individual. By freezing a shadow, he not only creates the effect of a person's shadow being frozen, the person themselves are frozen because their shadow is a direct reflection of the individual. What I mean by that is this: the shadow only moves when you move, so if the shadow is incapable of moving, you are incapable of moving yourself. By traveling between shadows, he can create portals that could potentially lead to other locations that he cannot see, which is the difference between spatial magic, where they are limited to places they've been and place markers down at. You see, spatial magic that allows teleportation, such as what Finral uses, requires knowledge over the area and potentially a mana marker depending on his familiarity with the location. Because of this, the mana markers are really hard to make and required to go certain distances. But no such limitation is confirmed upon Shadow Corridor, which seems to allow Noct to go wherever he wants to as long as he's aware of the area's location and there's a shadow nearby it, such as his old family home. Finally, Noct was able to use Dark Guard Invitation to teleport both himself and Asta to a Faust Devil Research Facility, which, by the way, let's talk about that really quickly. Most of Noct's spells involve Devil Union, and he has 4 Devil Familiars. With this, we can assume that Noct's primary method of fighting is with Devil Union, as he's mostly only shown Devil Union abilities. I mean, he has some basic shadow manipulation, like immobilizing Asta, but overall, Devil Union seems to be his bread and butter for combat. Noct has access to exactly 5 methods of Devil Union, that being Canis, Equus, Felis, Gallus, and then finally Unite Mode Gallus x Felis, or Gallus and Felis combined. Let's start with Gimadello and Canis. Now, Canis has the ability called Pack. It allows the user to spawn, basically, dog shadow hounds. Think Baskerville from Hellsing, but like, small army of them. Their key is identical to Noct's, thus making it impossible to tell which is the real one. And not only that, they can travel through shadows just like Noct, meaning they are able to appear for sneak attacks in the user shadow, the victim shadow, any shadow really. Because of this, they are very hard to deal with, and they respawn infinitely until Noct is defeated. Unite Mode Equus, or Horse, depending, is the Devil Union mode with Slatos, which basically gives Noct this giant armor setup with kind of horse feet and other kind of shit like that. Like, all these have different inspiration by animal depending on what the animal is. Like, the devils aren't animals, but they're given an animal theme when they're in Union mode, which I don't really get, but I don't hate. It's unique at least. Equus gives Noct the ability of Toughness, which allows him to, well, be extremely tough and even withstand presence of the Demon King, something that sent Captain Jack to the floor and could stop at Black Bull's base with Henry. With Union Mode Felis, Noct assimilates with the devil Plumed and gives him access to this cat ninja look that I don't actually hate. With this, he has two shown abilities, that being agility, which, believe it or not, makes him very agile and fast. Gotta love these names. This also gives him access to Heaven's Shadow Second Sight, which basically focuses his magic into his eyes that allows him to perceive mana and tear through shadows to other locations. With this, he can see a lot of places, even through darkness, which gives him a lot better view, visage, and whatever else we want to call sight. And we have Unite Mode Gallus, which basically is the assimilation of Wagner, or Wagner, depending on how you want to say it. I like using German words. Basically, it's a Plague Doctor-esque appearance with a crow mask, and with it, he has the ability called Crow, where he makes this, like, sound wave of magic that can paralyze the victim, which is actually kind of badass if you think about it. Finally, he has Devil Union Gallus X Felis, which gives him access to the abilities of both Felis and Gallus. Basically, it mixes the powers, amplifying his own mana, as anytime he assimilates with a devil, his naturally high mana reserves are then amplified with the devil's power. Two devils being better than one, he gets way more power with this form. Presumably, he gets access to both agility and crow, although this is never confirmed as he only ever used this once, and it was mainly to get a power-up for a big-ass spell. You see, some spells, like Shadow Corridor, or maybe Dark Garden Invitation, he can use those without any devil help. That's his natural mana. But some spells that are more powerful and big require the help of a devil's magic. Like I said before, Heaven's Shadow Second Sight is one of those spells, but also Dark Prison Hunting Ground is a mana zone with the power of Canis presumably required. Or at least, he's only used it with Canis so far. And Monument of Atonement is a big ceiling spell that requires two devils' power to amplify his to a greater level. With that being said, that's really it. I mean, Noct's moveset's one of my favorite in the series, as next to Star Magic and Sword Magic, it's probably the coolest one there is in terms of aesthetic. Yuki Tatsuba has a really strong understanding of dark coloring with the blacks, and he uses those very effectively with Noct's Shadow Magic. Noct is also just an amazing character in general, and he will get his own independent video later on. But this is kind of a quick video because I want to get one up before the end of the month to keep up to my 2-video schedule I'm doing now. With that being said, hope you enjoyed. I like the anime. Next month will be about a regular magic and probably a Dark Triad. I don't fucking know. I'll figure that out when I can figure that out. See you next time.